Hey, I'm Jay, and you're listening to the More Than podcast. I'm a former Miss Arizona USA, professional model, confidence coach, and red carpet host. Don't let those titles fool you, though. I'm a 30-year-old, overly curious woman who loves to connect with others over the good, the bad, and the hilarious parts of our stories. From the outside looking in, my 20s looked really glamorous, but in reality, I struggled deeply with my confidence, self-worth, and mental health. I went on a deep healing journey to figure out how to live a life that felt as fulfilling as it looked, and now I help you do that too. I'm not afraid to go deep, and our guests aren't either. We talk all about mindset, mental health, confidence, relationships, beauty, boundaries, business, fashion, while giving you tangible tools for your own growth. This is one of those girl chats that leave you feeling inspired and empower you to stop settling and create a life you love. You're so much more than whatever's holding you back, and I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Kathy. Welcome to the More Than podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to have you here. You're a firecracker, and you carry yourself with so much confidence and such a lust for life that it draws people in. The second we met, I was like, can I please have you on this podcast? Our community and our audience has so much to learn from you. So thanks for taking the time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course. We met at our mutual friends, Zach and Katie's house, which I know you love them just as much as I do.
I do.
And you said something that has stuck with me ever since, that at 70 years old, you feel like life is just getting started.
Yeah, I'm actually just turned 71.
Did you really?
I did. That was why I went to Italy for my birthday.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I just feel like so many people get to a certain age, whether it's 30 or 40, and they have this preconceived notion that they have to be doing certain things or that opportunities are over at a particular age, and I just don't subscribe to that. I feel like we are truly the masters of our own destiny, and if you believe, you can make it happen.
I love that. Have you always been that way? Have you always had that outlook?
I have always been pretty positive person. When my husband died 5 years ago, that sort of catapulted me into a whole different, atmosphere of what am I doing and why am I doing it. But as I've come out of that grief and worked through that, I think that really energized me even more, that life is short and no one's coming to your door and taking your hand and giving you opportunities and making life fun. It's up to me to do it. And so I've just really embraced that, and I'm happier now than I've ever been.
Wow. And that really got catapulted by grief.
Yeah.
That's wild. Are you comfortable talking about
Sure.
where you were 5 years ago?
Yeah. So my husband and I was 20 when I got married, and he was 23, and we were married just short of 46 years. He died by suicide, and I had never known anyone who had died by suicide. I knew very little about the topic, and it just, suicide is as horrific as anyone might think. What it does to families, not just to me, but it really is the ripple in the pond effect. It just is so far reaching to family and my children and friends, and my life irrevocably changed in an instant. And I miss him so much, but suicide, obviously, maybe not to many people, but suicide, you are struggling with lots of things. People don't just take their lives. And so for me, I had to work through all that and then realize that, you go through all the phases, guilt and anger, and finally you come to acceptance, and in my case, embracing life.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful perspective. And I'm sure it took time to be able to get to that place, because like you said, if you're not around it or you've never been surrounded by somebody struggling on that level, you can't understand it. At all.
Yeah. And even having walked through it, to get through grief, you have to walk through it. You have to face it and walk through it. And he'll always be in my heart, and our life together, I treasure it, but life is for the living. And I know that sounds trite, but he would want me to go on and be happy and live my life. And my kids want that. And I want it for myself.
Yeah.
So that's where
Was
I am.
mental health a conversation that you guys had when your kids were growing up? Was that an often conversation that you guys had, or has that just totally shifted in the last 5 years?
With my children?
Yeah.
No, we had talked about, I had some, in my own family, my siblings, there were some mental health issues. So it was not a taboo subject for me or my kids, really. I just think that suicide carries, if you say, oh, my husband died of a heart attack or a stroke or whatever, run over by a bus, but to choose to take your life, it has a whole different cast and a whole different set of circumstances that go with it. So my kids, their grief process, working through their grief has been quite different from mine, but I have a great family. We are all support each other, and my kids want me to be happy. They want me to go on and do the things that I'm doing that make me happy.
Yeah, and it's an illness, just like cancer is an illness, right?
Depression plays. I don't mean to ever make light of it, but if people are having trouble, typically, if they're unhappy in their marriage or they're unhappy in their job or whatever, they change jobs, they have an affair, they buy a new car, they don't take their life. It truly is a mental health issue, and I wish that suicide didn't carry the taboo. I wish people could talk about it more, because I don't have the statistics, but teenagers, young adults, it cuts across all generations.
Absolutely. And you talking about it is making that positive impact because you're opening up that conversation.
Right.
And making it not so taboo.
Yeah.
While you're going through your grief journey, at what point are you like, hey, I'm ready to move on to the next phase of my life and enter a reality TV dating show?
So it's, first of all, it's not a linear progression.
Yeah.
There's some days even now where I'll just wake up and I'm just profoundly sad, but those days, those stretches become further and further apart. But I think that me going on the Golden Bachelor was actually just Kathy being Kathy. I was at my daughter's house, and she had a premature baby, and so the baby was in the NICU, so I was visiting with my daughter, and I was just scrolling through Facebook, and I saw this ad that said, looking for single women over 65 for the Golden Bachelor. And I thought, I'd watch The Bachelor. I thought, I can do that. I clicked the button and filled out a 10-minute form, and they called me the next day. And it just took off so quickly. And my daughter was really funny because when I first signed up, she said, oh, that's great, Mom. You should do this for yourself. But about the third interview, you're not going to really do this, are you, Mom?
Yeah, she's like, I was just kidding. I was being supportive, but I was just kidding.
Really, you're not. And I said, you're damn right I'm going to do it if I get the chance. Hell yeah, I'm going to do it. But that was funny because I think 30,000 women applied. 30.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
they took 22. And you know what's strange? I still can't get a date.
That makes no sense to me.
Well,
At all. Because you are a catch.
Oh,
and my
sweet.
favorite part about you is you're a catch. Like, you carry yourself with a lot of confidence.
Well, let me say, somewhat little known fact, I was 200 pounds when I was in high school. I wasn't always confident. And I think that confidence is something that if you want to change your behavior, if I want to change my behavior, I had to change my habits. So, I learned to eat better. I started exercising, and those little steps one by one sort of brought me to a better place. So I think my confidence has grown over the years, like anyone else. When I had a job and I would go in the first day, I was nervous, but then I would say, I can do this. And I would do it. And I was successful at it. And then each time that happened, I was, Kathy, remember that. You have to trust in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, everyone else will.
And you have a track record to look back at every single time it has worked out.
Right.
And you've proven to yourself that you're capable of doing hard things.
Anyone is capable of doing hard things. I think that's one of the messages that I have put out there more recently. People will say to me, stop me and say, I'm going through a horrible divorce and I don't know if I can do it. I don't know, whatever. Or I just lost my job. And I always say the same thing, you can do it. Pick yourself up. You can do it. You have to believe in yourself. You can do it. No one said it's going to be easy. Changing habits, going from a size 18 to a size 6 was not easy. I had to learn to eat better, and it was a fight in the beginning, but I did it. And I am no better than anyone else. I'm no stronger than anyone else. I just believe in myself now.
Take me back to Kathy growing up. You said in high school you were 200 pounds.
Yep.
Where were you born, raised? Take me through your childhood.
So I grew up, I was one of 5, the youngest of 5 children. My parents were divorced when I was 5. I grew up in Newton, Massachusetts, which is about 12 miles west of Boston. And I grew up right on Heartbreak Hill where the Boston Marathon is run, and had a seemingly typical childhood, except that the divorce back then, I think I was the only kid in my class with divorced parents. So,
really?
Yeah. So that was a bit strange. And then my dad remarried, and so I have a stepsister and a half brother. So then there were 7 of us, and we're all very close in age, top to bottom. The first 6 are 7 years apart, and then my half brother's 9 years younger than I. So
wow, very close.
It was crazy. It was a crazy life growing up, but I grew up in the suburbs, taking the train. It was a different time, going in on the subway into Harvard Square and walking on the Charles River, and those few dates I had in high school, those were the things we did. It was a different time. I got married very young and left Massachusetts, and I've never lived there since.
How did you meet your husband?
That is a funny story. I went to college, so I graduated high school early. And
what's early? How young were you?
17.
Okay, young.
I finished a semester early.
Okay.
And so that's when I decided I needed to start losing weight. So I did, and when I went to college, I was really uncomfortable with myself. I was thin, and I didn't, I almost felt like it was someone else's body. And so I went to my suite mate was dating a guy, and there was a fraternity party, and she asked me to go with her. And I literally was I will never forget it, a fraternity party and back then the drinking age was 18. So
ooh.
Everyone had their red cups, and I looked across the sea of people, and I saw this very handsome guy, and I looked at my suite mate, and I said, I'm going to marry that guy. And
that's love at first sight.
It was absolutely love at first sight, and I did. 18 months later, we were married.
Did he come up to you? Did you go up to him?
He came up to me. Actually, he came up to me because my suite mate's boyfriend was also a fraternity brother, so they made the introduction, and then we had a date the next weekend, and that was it.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah.
And then you get married at 20 years old.
So I met him, I guess I was 18 when I met him, and I just turned 20, so I guess it was just close to 2 years. But yeah, my dad married, I told you we're all close in age, my dad married 4 daughters in 18 months. Yeah, 4 big weddings. Yeah. So yeah, it was, it was such a different time back then. My daughter got married at 35, and when she was 20, I was like, oh dear heavens, no. It just was a different time back then.
Yeah.
I chose well. I would say I was lucky. Even then, I knew what I was after, And not only was my husband a handsome man, but he was smart and he was kind and he was caring and he was a great dad. So I was lucky. I'll say it. I was lucky. When I was on the show, the Golden Bachelor, a lot of the women were talking about their miserable marriages or their cheating husbands. And I just sat there with my mouth shut, which just doesn't happen very often, because I couldn't imagine what that was like, because I didn't say my marriage was perfect, but I just, I didn't experience that kind of trauma in my marriage.
And you were married for 46 years?
Just short of 46 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so you get married at 20, and then you'd mentioned that he was in the Navy,
Yes,
correct?
he was a bit older than I, and so he was at the tail end of the Vietnam War, and his draft number every year was 6, 3, 9, so, low numbers, he was going. So he applied to be an officer in the Navy, so he got his commission in 1973, and we got married the day after he got his commission. And we moved, our honeymoon was driving a little tiny U-Haul to Athens, Georgia, which is where the Naval Supply Corps School was. And he was there in school for 6 months. And then we moved to Scotland and lived there for 2 years.
How was that?
I'll tell you, I have a lot of Scottish blood in my background, and it kind of felt like home. I loved it. And now that I'm single, I'm thinking, go back there. I love a guy with an accent.
Oh, who doesn't?
Really, right?
Anybody with an accent automatically just gets that much more attractive.
So we lived in Scotland 2 years, and then we lived in South Carolina for a bit, in Georgia, and then my husband got out and went back to get his MBA, and did that, and then we moved to Houston, Texas, and we were there for 20 years, and then moved in 2000, moved to Austin.
Wow. Now, how old were you when you had your first child?
28 and a half.
28 and a half. So that was after Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I had not finished college when I got married, and it was so important to me. Educate my kids. I pounded into them. Education is so important to me, and I wanted to get my college degree, before I started a family. So I didn't quite. I had my son, I think, was 14 months old when I finally got my degree from the University of Houston, but I was determined to finish college, and I did.
Good for you. What was your degree in?
English literature.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
You're smart.
Well, I love to read. I love to read. It wasn't, math. I really struggled with math. My dad was a math whiz. He invented the barcode. I mean, my dad was a genius.
He invented the barcode?
Yeah, the parity code, zeros and ones, the scan thing. He worked on the
That's iconic.
He worked on the Manhattan Project. He programmed the first computer while he was at Harvard. Yeah, he was a very smart man. I did not get that gene. I got the language and English, the humanities gene. So.
I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, we all have our strengths.
That's right. We do.
That's impressive, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you finally get your degree when you're in Houston.
Yep.
And that's after your first son was born, and then you had 2 more children,
Yep,
correct?
2 more. I had another son, and then 2 years later, I had my daughter. And I have 2 fabulous grandchildren who live here in Austin, and a fabulous son-in-law, and my son that has the daughter, he just got remarried 3-4 months ago, and Susan from the Golden Bachelor is a wedding officiant, and she came to Austin and married them.
No way.
She performed the ceremony, yeah. It was
How
great.
was the ceremony?
Oh, it was just great. My son, I didn't know this, but he had a rose, and his wife's name is Candy, and he had a rose that he picked up, and as the service started, as the wedding started, he looked at her and he said, I just have one question for you, Candy. Will you accept this final rose?
Stop.
And I forgot that there was a videographer there, and it just came out of my mouth. I said, yep, another rose I didn't get. So, yep, I did.
I got to see that video.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It was a beautiful wedding, and so it's great. I have 2 of my 3 kids here, and my 2 granddaughters are here. The only thing I'm missing is that guy.
Yeah, and you're open to it.
I'm open to it, but you know what? I don't need a guy. I think that is something that I wish women would know, and men would know. Men don't need women, or partners. You don't have to have a partner. I think that's what makes me so open now, is that I know that I'm good. I'm happy. I'm a complete person on my own. And so if it happens for me, it'll be great. But if it doesn't, I am living a full, happy life.
That's a mic drop moment right there.
Yeah.
Because I think the healthiest relationships are two whole, complete, healthy people that then come together.
Yeah.
But I think so many people look at relationships like that person's going to complete you or that person's going to fix you. And we have a lot of women in their 20s and their 30s that are new into dating or even are married and still looking for that.
So let me say to all of you women out there listening, I don't care if you're 20 or 80. Here's the deal. You don't change people. You need to understand that what is a red flag when you meet someone does not become a white flag ever. It's a red flag, and it only gets deeper red as time goes on. So if you are dating someone and you think you're going to change them, let me assure you, you can take it to the bank. You will never change that person, and in fact, you'll resent it after a while. And I think that you're right. I think we sometimes think we can fix that person. And then we can have a great relationship, and that's just not the way it works.
I call them fixer-uppers. If you're dating a fixer-upper, thinking that if you just do just enough, then they'll be this person that you want them to become. And like you said, they'll resent you, and it's not lasting. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but I have a lot of common sense. And I think that one of the reasons the divorce rate is so high, we could talk about that all day, but lack of commitment, all those things that are issues. But I also think that people marry someone without really, they move in together and they live together a year, and then the next step is marriage. Well, wait a minute. Do you really, those things that drive you nuts, you think they're going away when you get married? Nope, they're not. I love that you said that. The things you see in the beginning only get heightened.
That's
the
right.
good qualities and the bad qualities.
Yeah, that's right.
That I think people assume that they'll grow, they'll change, they'll whatever. Where you got to not be so nitpicky, okay, if they're messy and that drives you crazy, somebody can eventually change that. That doesn't have to be a deal breaker.
That's right.
But if they don't respect you, if they don't have good relationships in their own life, if they're controlling, any of that stuff only gets so heightened, and people are surprised by that.
Yeah, I don't know why. When I look at some of the most successful relationships, I think those are people that they have learned to compromise. And I will tell you, in my marriage, that was probably my biggest mistake. Everything was important, but you know what? Not everything is important. You have to really, these are all these adages we've heard our whole life, but they're there because they're true.
Yeah.
Not everything is worth dying on the cross for. Not everything is worth a battle. You really do have to pick your battles and learn to compromise. And that's the only way friendships work. That's the only way a marriage works, or a partnership, a working relationship, business. It's the same thing. You can't always be right. And I wish I had done a little bit more of that, sitting back and saying, Kathy, does it really matter that, whatever it was?
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, does it really matter?
Even in the small scheme of things.
Yeah.
It just didn't. And I think that comes with age and experience. People say youth is wasted on the young. You learn these things, and if you could go back, we all would have much healthier relationships. I know I would deal with my children differently. I did the best I could. I love my kids, but I wasn't a perfect wife. I'm not a perfect mom. But each experience I have had has taught me a new lesson. And so when I talk to young women, it's not magic. It's not magic. It takes a lot of hard work, and not every relationship is meant for a lifetime.
Yeah. And I think that's important for people to know.
Yeah.
How do you look at divorce? If people are in relationships that there's a lot that commit to that vow and are so terrified of divorce solely because they're breaking that vow, even though there's some very do or die things going on in the relationship. But then there's other people that are so nonchalant about it. How do you view if a friend comes to you saying that they're thinking about divorce?
Well, actually, I've had several friends. Many of my friends are younger than I am. Just about anybody's younger than I am at this point. But my first comment to them is, you need to talk to someone, a professional. You've got to find out. I mean, if there's abuse going on, to me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But ironically, sometimes people, and I've had friends who've been abused, the people who are abused can't leave the relationship because they're fearful, and so that's a whole different cycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my feeling on divorce is, if you jump into marriage too quickly, not a good thing. If you jump out of marriage too quickly, not a good thing. To get that counseling, talk to someone, talk to friends, but talk to someone that can really help you separate out your feelings from what you thought it was going to be, what really is the problem in your marriage. Because, again, so many marriages break down because there wasn't enough communication. They're just, that sounds like such a simple thing, but it takes marriage is a lot of work, friends. All of you out there, it is not easy. And I loved my husband and he loved me, but marriage is not easy. It's a lot of work, and anything that's worth having is worth working for. So
Absolutely.
I don't think, I think sometimes divorce is a necessary, I think I've had friends who say, I'm going to stay together till the kids get out of high school. Yeah. And I'm not a fan of that either. I think as a mom, one of the lessons I've learned is children do what they see you do, not what you tell them to do. So I think being a really good role model for your children is important, and being a good role model for yourself and your friends. It's really important. I wanted my children to grow up and be strong individuals, giving back to their communities, being loving and kind, and I think for the most part I achieved that.
Yeah. And seeing a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
I think that's the first relationship as children we see.
Right.
And so we understand what's either normal or what's not normal. And I think that's why a lot of people repeat those patterns then later in life, because that's ingrained in you as a child.
That's right. Well, and also I think, I don't know the stats, but I know that a lot of people get married and their second marriage ends in divorce. I think that's because people don't do the work. They don't figure out who they are, what they really want, what went wrong in their marriage. They don't do any of those things. And so we're bound to repeat our mistakes if we don't.
If we don't do the work.
If we don't do the work.
Absolutely. Now, when you bring kids into a marriage, there's inevitably a shift in dynamics there. How were you able to, or any advice that you have for people that are bringing children in? How do you focus on the relationship first instead of having your kids as the center of everything?
So that, I will tell you, you've hit on, that is a tough one. My daughter and her husband have a 13-month-old little girl who is just a treasure. But there's a lot of stress. They both have full-time jobs, and they both have, very big with a lot of responsibility. Again, I think the recipe is you have to make time for each other. And I'm not the first one to say that. This is a hackneyed phrase, but date nights, kids should not be put first all the time, because you know what? The world is not going to revolve. They need to learn pretty quickly the world does not revolve around you. So I think that trying to have those family times together is really important to build that strong, cohesive family unit. But it's also really important to get that time alone. I'm constantly saying to my daughter, leave the baby with me, and you guys go out and have a date night. And I do that as often as I can for them, because, again, these are hackneyed phrases, but if you don't give the nutrients, water, fertilize, all those things, a relationship, it's not going to flourish.
You're spot on. And sometimes it's the most simple things.
It is.
Like, it sounds simple to say, communicate, value each other, go on date nights, listen.
Take a walk, and it doesn't have to be a dinner at an expensive restaurant. It can be a walk on the lake. It can be a half an hour bike ride. It can, anything where the two of you get to look at each other and talk about each other and make sure you're keeping those bonds strong. Because let me tell you, so many marriages, I have several friends whose marriages have fallen apart because they said, well, I have to. I mean, I brought this child into the world. You're not doing your child, in my opinion, any great service by putting them first all the time. And you're certainly doing a disservice to yourself and your partner.
Absolutely. Are there any other tips for young married couples that are going through that transition period where the honeymoon phase has worn off and real life has set in? I think it's a shock to a lot of people because they don't think it's not supposed to be like this. It's not supposed to be hard. We're not supposed to have any kind of conflict.
Well,
and that's a lot of relationships too that don't go through conflict before getting married.
Right.
Like you said, if you're too quick to get married, you'll be quick to divorce.
Well, first of all, you have to call out the elephant in the room. When you're a marriage is like anything else. It's a new. I hate to sound litigious, but it's a legally binding kind of thing. It's a contract, right? And so even if you're not legally married, even if you're a partnership, if you've come together and you've bought furniture and dishes and toilet bowl cleaner, you are effectively combining your lives together. Maybe not your resources at first. So I think you really have to spend the time to set up what's going to work. Not the same thing works for everyone. So maybe in your relationship, your partner does all the cooking and you do all the dishes. Maybe you take turns doing the housework. But you can't just let things go and think it'll work its way out. It won't. It won't.
It'll just fester.
It'll fester, and it'll blow up into an argument, resentment, all those things. So many of those things, if you just do a little pre-planning, those things don't have to become an issue. And what's right for one person. I used to love to mow the grass. People are like, what? Yeah, so, and my husband used to love to cook. So that worked. It's just, marriage is like anything else. It's new, and it's something that takes getting used to. And it's, the wedding is just the beginning of life. I mean, it really is just the beginning. And a wedding, to me, a wedding is this beautiful, wonderful celebration of two people coming together. Okay, that's over. Now let's get down to the business of living together. And again, it doesn't have to be a marriage. Two people who choose to live together, now the work begins. And that's how you build a strong foundation, is having those conversations and getting those things organized so that there's less strife.
Absolutely.
And it's hard.
Now let's talk to our listeners that are either going into a dating after divorce, or maybe they're a widower, or trying to enter back into the dating world. And obviously everybody has a past, everybody has previous relationships, and it's just different than when you're dating when you're super, super young. We don't have some of the same baggage. What are red flags for you now that you see it's like a non-negotiable?
I don't have, okay, for me, the only non-negotiable I have, truly, the only is you can't be a smoker. I just can't. I'd say a very close second for me is they have to be fit and adventurous. And I coined this phrase when I was on the show, I don't date used to guys.
Ooh, I like that.
A used to guy is a guy who used to play tennis. He used to ski. He used to ride a bicycle. Now he sits on the sofa. I am not interested in used to guys. But I will say that when you're in your 20s, really up through probably your 50s, you have children, you're raising children. So when you're looking for a husband or a partner or a wife, whatever, you have those things to consider, right? Especially when you're dating early in life, it's, will this guy make a good father? Will she be a good wife? All those things you have to consider. But as you get to be older, I'm not building a life with, if I find the guy, we're not raising children. What's important for me is that he wants to be integrated into my life and I into his, both of our families together. I'm not moving. I mean, that's one of the fall downs in Gary and Teresa's wedding on the show. You know, she didn't want to move to Indiana. He wasn't moving to Jersey. That was one of the issues. I'm realistic. I would move to Southern California part of the year and go back and forth. But we at our age have families and we have grandchildren, and any guy who's going to give up his family and say, oh, I'll move to Austin and be with you full time, that's a red flag. What about your family? What about your grandkids? So
interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective, because when I did hear about Gary and Teresa, my first thought was, did you guys not discuss this before you ever got married?
Yeah.
But like you're saying, it's more complicated than that.
Well, it's more complicated, and I mean, Teresa still works. I'm not privy to the, discussions they had. I'm sorry that their marriage didn't work out, for sure.
Absolutely.
They're both very nice people, and I'm sorry that social media has been so cruel to Gary.
Have they?
Yeah, they probably have. I wish people, if you're listening, be nice. It's so much easier to be nice than cruel, and you don't know the shoes that other people have walked in. We don't know, and I know them both well. I don't know the whole story, so be nice. I think at my age, I don't feel the need necessarily to be married. I like having, I've become a little selfish in that I like having my own time in the morning and sitting outside and drinking a cup of coffee and not having to, be somewhere at a certain time or answer to someone else. But I think that just comes with age as well. I think anyone out there looking to date who's been divorced for a period of time, I think you have to really be true to yourself. What is it you want? And be okay with the answer. I'm okay with the answer that I want someone who wants to be part of my life and be part of theirs, and I'm not going to give up my family. I'm good with that. And if they're not, that's not my problem. Again, that confidence comes with age, knowing what I want.
Exactly.
Now,
and not swaying on what you want.
No, I will say to you, and he's a very good friend. He lives here in Austin. I dated him for 10 minutes, and now we're just very good friends. He has never been married. He's had a couple of long-term relationships. I think it's not a deal breaker. It's a 3/4 deal breaker. I don't think I would date a guy who hasn't been married or in a significantly long relationship, because that just doesn't seem to work.
Yeah. Okay, how would you respond if you met somebody that admitted to you that their marriage ended because of infidelity and they were the cheater? Is that a deal breaker for you?
At this point in my life, no. I think if I were younger, yes, it would be. And the reason I say that is I think people go through stages in their life where they talk about midlife crisis and all that. Some people go out and buy racing cars. Some people go out and have affairs. Some people go out and buy expensive jewelry. I mean, people do crazy things.
Yeah.
Not that expensive jewelry is crazy, but I think that do they get it out of their system? I think when you get to be in your 60s, I think you know what you want. You've sowed your wild oats. Again, all these terms that we've heard our whole life. You've made your mistakes. You're now ready to you know the value of finding that good person. You know, people ask me all the time, why don't I travel by myself? I want that person to walk hand in hand with and share that sunset with. I think that when you get to be a certain age, you're done with the tomfoolery, you know? You're ready to settle down. So no, if I were in my 30s or 40s, I would not have dated a cheater. They say once a cheater, always a cheater. I think until you hit a certain age, that's probably true.
Very interesting perspective. I like that a lot. What did you learn about yourself on the show?
You know, I've been asked that many times, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, because I'm not at all, but I think what I learned about myself was that I'm okay. That I am okay. It affirmed, excuse me, it affirmed that I am a good person. I do have a big heart. And even though, you know, people rip me up on the internet for telling Teresa to zip it, now people are like, oh my gosh, Kathy, that's not what you're like at all. I say, yeah, I know. It was reality TV. It's okay. I know that I'm a kind, nice person. And that just being on that show just affirmed it for me, that I have a lot to be grateful for in my life, a lot to be happy about. And I genuinely came away from that show even happier than I went into it.
Wow.
And I didn't get the guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because I know from just a handful of the same circles that we walk in, when you go on a show like that and people tear you apart, it can really make you second guess yourself.
Yeah.
And it can take a hit on your confidence and your mental health. It doesn't sound like it did that for you.
It didn't. And that's, you know, some of the women, I will be honest, did. It really was hard for them. And I started thinking, okay, Kathy, is there something wrong with you? Because I didn't let the comments bother me. Lots of people, there was one thing that people wrote all the time that I look like Caitlyn Jenner and that Susan from the show looks like Kris Jenner. And a lot of people wrote it as a derogatory comment. You know, you're so masculine, you're this. And every time I wrote back, thank you for that lovely compliment. Because in my mind, Caitlyn Jenner is the bravest, courageous woman and a beautiful woman, and I am thrilled to be compared to her. So thank you for those compliments. And I think some people may have been hurt by it or insulted by it. I wasn't at all. I just thought these people writing these things like, you know, telling Teresa to zip it, you're such a mean girl. They don't know me. And it just literally it didn't even get under my skin. It really didn't. I don't know if that makes me a weird person or not, but it just didn't.
It's because you know who you are.
Yeah, I think it is.
You know who you are, and you also have a good circle around you that also knows who you are. So the voices of opinions that don't know you don't matter.
And I it's funny when people see me on the street, they'll say, I love you, you're so funny. And then they'll say, you look so much younger in person. And I'm like, have you ever... You know, you don't get to sleep. You don't get to, you know, you're lucky if you get any makeup on. But the show was such a positive experience, and I want people to know that we made great friends. I think the biggest takeaway for me, though, is that I have a small platform to encourage people to be their best selves. I'm in the last chapter of my life, and it is going to be, I hope, the best. I believe it's going to be the best and the longest chapter. And I want everyone to know that they can make whatever chapter of the life they're in, of their own lives, they can make it. They can make it great. You just have to do it, you know, step by step and believe in yourself. And that's being able to say that and have women and men come up to me and say, you've changed my life. I'm doing it now. And I feel such gratitude that I have the opportunity to help anyone have a better life.
You're intentional about it. And you're making efforts every day to make sure that you are living life to the fullest, that you're enjoying this phase of your life. And you're also in a phase where you're kind of a yes man, that you're just saying yes to all these opportunities and you're crushing it.
Yeah, it's funny when they interviewed me for the show, that one of the questions was, is there something you'd like to do? I said, yeah, I'd really like to jump out of an airplane. I haven't done it yet, but I really want to do it.
Really?
In tandem, obviously, not by myself. Yeah, I don't know. I think it would scare the dickens out of me. But,
yeah.
But I think, I don't want to go up 36,000 feet, but, I think I would like to do it. And then they said, was there anything you don't want to do? And the only thing that I probably could be talked into doing it, is scuba diving. And I'm a very strong swimmer, and I snorkel and all that, but I'm a little nervous about that. But, I don't like to say no. I like to say yes to adventure. I like to say yes to opportunities, because why not?
Yeah, great things come from it. And that's what makes life worth living.
Yeah.
You got to spice it up
and
sometimes.
I will say again, when my husband died, it was sort of this quick halt, a fast halt, a dead, what's the word I'm looking for? Just everything came to an immediate stop for a while. And I think as my, all these metaphors, as my train has started engaging and the wheels have started turning, I've really picked up speed. And I just feel so grateful for every day and the people that have come into my life. And, people ask me, would I do another reality TV show? I would, because it was so much fun. I had fun.
I would love to see you on another reality TV show. Do you think they're going to do a Bachelor in Paradise Golden edition?
Listen, here's my goal right now. So Joan is the Golden Bachelorette. I want them to bring me back to see Joan so that I can have business cards made up with my phone number on it and hand it out to the guys. If it doesn't work out with Joan, give me a call.
I love that.
Yes, I would love it. I would do, my deal is, as long as they have air conditioning, and I don't want bugs. Like, it's got to be a place where there's air conditioning, no bugs. I'm not wearing a bikini. I'd love to go to another country. And I just got back from Italy. I think I said I was there for my birthday with my family. And I called one of the producers and I said, hey, I don't know if you're doing Bachelor in Paradise or not, but if you are, you can knock Italy off the list, because I'm tall, I'm 5'8", and the men there are so good looking, but they're so short.
Are they really?
They're short.
I was going to say an Italian Bachelor in Paradise would be amazing, but maybe we got to go somewhere else.
Well, I wouldn't say no, but
I'd still go.
I'd still go, but we just have to import some tall men.
I think you and I were texting right before you went, and you were like, I don't have time to waste. Unless he's good-looking Italian and has a lot of money, then I have time.
I'll tell you, my daughter, who is absolutely stunningly gorgeous, we were carrying her baby around, and men were just, I was behind her and men were just eyeballing her. And I was like, okay, apparently you can, be beautiful and have a baby on your hip and the guys are still interested. So she was not my wing woman, I can tell you that.
Dang it.
I know.
Now, where are you meeting people?
I am not on the dating sites anymore. It wasn't very successful for me. That was one of the reasons I thought it'd be fun to go on the Golden Bachelor. I thought, I've tried online dating, so why not?
Yeah.
So I'm not on the dating apps. Most of my friends are younger, and I've been to bars with girlfriends and stuff, but that's really not the age bracket where I'm going to find someone.
Yeah.
I kayak, I live my life, and this is some of my dating advice for people. You didn't ask, but I want it. But I say it to myself all the time. Live your best life. Do the things that you love, and the right people will come into your life.
You're spot on. So, that's for friendships. That's for romantic relationships.
Yep. So I do the things that I like to do. And, hopefully they said all kinds of guys would slide into our DM.
Into the
I
DMs.
love that expression, slide into your DM. I've had a few 35-year-olds.
Really?
Which, I don't want to raise any more children, so that's a no. And I don't really want a long distance. I don't want to meet a guy who lives in Alaska, because I'm probably not going to fly, every other week to Alaska.
Fair.
But, I'm definitely open. I'm sort of at a loss now of how to go about dating again, just because we live in a social media world, and it doesn't matter what age. Most people seem to meet online.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
And I think more and more people are trying to bring that offline and meet in person.
Yeah.
But I think everyone's at that same, like, how do you meet? Are you at bars? Are you at restaurants? But like you said, just go do the things that you like to do, and other people that like to do the same things will be there.
Yeah. And as I said, if I think that if you put it out there that you have to meet someone, that's just doesn't feel right to me anymore. I want to enjoy my life, and I am enjoying my life. And every day brings something new into my life. And, right around the corner, I could walk out this door and meet the guy, or
Absolutely.
Or meet 10 of them. I mean, who knows?
Exactly. We're not just open to just one.
I mean, why limit yourself, really?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Now, a way that we love to end the episodes is a lot of women struggle to say something that they're proud of themselves for, whether that's personally, professionally, something that is actively going on that they're doing in their life that they're proud of themselves for. So what is something in the last week that you want to take a second to say, I'm really proud of myself for that?
Oh, wow. The reason I'm struggling is I just got back from Italy, and I am proud of myself for just completing mundane tasks, like seriously, getting the laundry done, getting bills paid, catching up on my day-to-day life, because the jet lag was a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
It was a real thing. And I'm okay saying that, because, not every success is something that you need fireworks about. I am proud of myself that I got home, organizing, unpacking suitcases and cleaning up and helping my daughter with her daughter because her husband's out of town, and just living day-to-day life triumphantly. There's something to be said for living your day-to-day life and doing it well.
That's one of my favorite answers that we've ever gotten on this show. Well said. Now, you host your own podcast with your best friend.
Yep.
Tell our listeners all about that.
So Susan from the show and I have a podcast. It's called Golden Hour. It's under Bachelor Happy Hour. So if you're looking for it, just go to Bachelor Happy Hour, wherever you get your podcasts, and then click on the Bachelor Happy Hour, and then just scroll down and you'll see a picture of Susan and me and all of our podcasts there. We talk about just life and dating, and we take questions, and lots of people write in their questions to bachelornation.com/golden hour, and we love to answer those questions. And again, it's a forum for people who are not young, to sort of listen in and write in their questions about life and life after loss. We talk a lot about that because, loss isn't just divorce or death. It can be loss of relationships, loss of children, loss of a job, goes on. And so we talk a lot about those hard things in life. We also like to celebrate the fun things in life and dating stories. And people seem to be enjoying it. So I hope y'all tune in.
That's got to be such a fun outlet for you.
It is.
Throughout the week, just to hang out with your bestie.
It is. And Susan and I, we talk almost every day on the phone and just chit chat. But it's funny because on the podcast, we either completely agree or we completely disagree. There was a question a while back about thinking that your son-in-law might be having an affair. You saw a text on his phone. What would you do? And Susan, who's full-blooded Italian, said, I'd take him down in the wine cellar with a baseball bat. And I'm like, I think I would take a milder approach. So
I love that. Yeah. What would you do?
Well, I can't even imagine, because I have truly have the best son-in-law on the planet.
Awesome.
Truly, I do. Johnny, you need to listen to this, because now I've put it out there in public. You are the absolute best son-in-law ever. But if in some other world, if I thought that, I would not that night, I would maybe ask him to have lunch with me or something quietly and say, look, this is your marriage. I saw this. I don't know, and you don't have to admit anything to me, but please talk to my daughter about it. Work this out one way or the other. Don't go down this road of annihilation. Figure it out.
Yeah.
And whichever way it goes.
So you would go to him before going to your daughter with it?
Yeah, because it's not, I could see going to my daughter, but you know what? The way the question was worded, it was hypothetical, and it was, did I see it? Did I not see it? And I don't want to blow up something that if I saw my son-in-law, which is even more preposterous, if I saw my son-in-law, making out with a woman in a bar, then I'd probably take him in the wine cellar with a baseball bat.
There you go.
But I would talk to my daughter. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I love that you guys get nitty gritty on these topics.
There's wine. See, that's the thing. We talk about menopause. We talk about, you name it. There's nothing that's off limits because we've had talks about sex and you name it. We've talked about it because that's how you bring normalcy to these topics that people are afraid to talk about it. It's not that difficult. You just talk about them.
Exactly.
And the more you talk about it, the more mainstream and the easier it becomes to talk about it. And we want people to talk. We want people to be able to feel like they can communicate with their partners, their children, their friends. And if we can just bring one shred, one drop of honesty to the conversation and make them feel willing to have that conversation with someone else, that's a good day.
You are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you know that. And I'm so grateful that I got time to just sit down and talk with you. We need to go drink wine.
We do. And
talk even more.
I just thank Katie and Zach for introducing us because you are pretty fabulous yourself.
Thank you. Good people attract good people.
There you go.
I swear. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for
I'm going to link everything in the show notes so you guys know exactly where to follow her. Make sure you're following the More Than podcast and write into us on Instagram. What was your favorite spot? And if you have a really good looking dad, send him in the DMs.
Wait. Uncle, dad,
family
neighbor. If you're in your 20s, your grandfather.
Send him our way and we'll vet him properly.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you in advance.
It. Imagine if you find your next date from the More Than podcast.
Matron of honor?
Yes, okay. I accept.
All right.
Well, now it's a goal. Now I'm on a mission. Guys, don't let me down. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.